Hi, this is On Imagination with the Healing Garden. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and run through the math now. This is something I'm doing regarding laying down the 6th through the 10th because I just made some connections here and I'm like, let's go ahead and analyze this. Now, my crown opened on 10 May of 2023 and I was in the 7th ethical perspective at that point. So 7th ethic is when the crown opens. And yep, I remember that very specifically. So then after that, 10th ethic is when the chakra stones no longer work for you. That's when Mercury retrograde stops affecting you. So Mercury retrograde no longer has any effect on you at the 10th ethic. Okay, now 6th ethic is when you can feel it. That's when you can feel it for the first time. That's when you feel the frequency. Now you are born feeling the energy. And this is where a lot of people get this all fucked up, is they mistake force, energy, and frequency. Learn physics. So this is it right here, is you have force, you have energy, and you have frequency. And these are not the same thing at all. So from the first perspective all the way up to the 5th perspective, you can feel only energy. Those are your emotions. And then from the 6th ethical perspective and on, you can feel frequency. Now, you can always feel force if you actually have your discipline under with your emotions. But if you are not aligned and if you are not disciplined in your energy, you're not going to feel the force. That's your intuition, by the way. Your intuition is pure force. But your self-preservation is pure energy. Now, if you're contaminated with fear, that's not you. This is a big problem that we have, is people think that fear is required. Fear is not required. Fear is invasive and it is a contamination. It means that it's it's a dichotomy. It's in relativity to how much love you do or don't have, true love. So the more fear you have, the less love you have. This is dichotomy. The more love you have, the less fear you have. So if you have fear, that is a fantastic metric for showing you how little or less, how much you have of actual true love. Now, at the 6th perspective, that is when you feel frequency for the first time. And then at the 7th ethic, that is when your crown chakra opens. Now, I'm going to say it again. When my crown chakra opened, I had an EMF pulse over my head that knocked me and another girl to the ground. So I don't know if I'm special. I don't know if that's normal. I have not yet had anyone who has reported that to me, which means if that has not happened to you, I'm special, or your crown chakra is not open. So I'm just going to need people to come to me and report, hey, that happened to me. Great. I'm not special. And your crown chakra is open. But if that's not happening to people and they are progressing, so here's the question I have for you. Does Mercury retrograde affect you? Because at 10th ethic, when you learn emotional fluidity, Mercury retrograde is going to feel fucking fantastic for you. That's a bath. It's like the best feeling in the world. So at the 10th ethic, Mercury retrograde actually works for you. And that's a way to mark if you're at the 10th ethical perspective. Now, that's also when you get into the deep abstract. That's the door. That's the beginning of the deep abstract. Eighth, 9th, 10th. Now at 11th is pure logic. 12th is forgiveness. That's when you integrate and you start the whole cycle over again. And that's when you begin the valley of shadow and death. Okay. So that's it. That's the order of operations. Is the 1st through the 5th ethic is energy. The 6th ethic is frequency. And then at the 7th ethic is when the crown chakra opens. And then after that is the 10th ethic, when Mercury retrograde no longer has any effect on you. That's literally when chakra stones and tarot cards are moot. You become more powerful than them at the 10th ethic. But also at the 10th ethic, that's when you finally make peace with your energy. Now, your intuition is pure love. Well, that's also the metric. See, this is where I get, and this is a question I've had from day one. So you have your point of comprehension. That's pure love. That's truth. And then you have your relativity to that rod of truth. So here's how this works in physics is you have a piece of love in you, and then the rod of truth is pure love. So it's a magnet. It's exactly a magnet. If you have pure love, then you're going to be drawn toward the rod of truth. But if you are contaminated with fear, you're going to actually be pushed away from truth. That's lie. That's lie and fear literally is the disintegration of the self, which is consumption. But when you have love and integration and logic, it actually pulls you toward the rod of truth. So that's where we're getting that magnetism of repulsion going away, disintegration, and integration. I just talked to some spiritualists about this the other day, and they translated your language for me. And this is what they said. Positive and negative. Now, that doesn't even make sense in the physics world. Like, that's something where I could slap the scientists over. Like, come on, guys. What are you doing with positive and negative? That doesn't even make sense. That's math talk, which makes sense in physics, but they took math language and they converted it over. So positive, negative is just a relativity in whichever direction on a ledger line. It's integer talk. But when you're talking physics with a battery, it's not positive and negative. What it is integration or disintegration. Now you need integrated mathematics, which no one had because I had to discover that. So with integrated mathematics, this corrects that. So with integration mathematics, integration is the force love being pulled towards. So it's forward growth, which is integration, which is creation, healing, love. And then disintegration, which is consumption, is the opposite of that. That's what we get with repelling. So when you're looking now at magnets or batteries, you're looking at a positive and negative. No. What it is integration or disintegration. Because positive and negative is good or bad. Now we're looking at the ethical integrity of a magnet. There is no such thing as an ethical integrity of a magnet. So positive and negative means nothing. It's also in relativity to that point of zero when we're talking about the XYZ axis in Euclidean geometry. This doesn't make any sense. It's because they're not linguists. So once they study language and logic, then they'll correct that. In the meantime, integration. So the question is, and here's where things really get fucked up, is masculine and feminine, based off of their translation, actually is referring to the integration or disintegration. Integration is the feminine. The disintegration is the masculine. That's at least what I've learned that's how they translated it. But even there, I'm looking at it going, well, that doesn't make any sense because they're talking about the balance of masculine and feminine. So that's not the integration or the disintegration. It doesn't make any fucking sense. Now, the other thing that does make sense is maybe they're referring to the abstract and the material. Now, that would make sense. The abstract being feminine and the material being masculine. Now, that would make sense because those are supposed to be integrated and balanced. That makes sense. So I think when they're saying masculine and feminine, they're using the wrong words, and they're supposed to be talking, because masculine and feminine means penis and vagina. Come on, people. That's what it means, penis and vagina. So when you take that away, because energy does not have at all genitals or gender, now you're looking at material abstract, which makes a lot more sense. So you have the material versus the abstract. Now, with the material and the abstract is very much physics and nature. That is, well, that's the ethos. And then with material, you have, well, that would be conception is abstract, and materialization is the material world. That's really what this is about, is the materialization versus the conceptualization. Now, that all being said, that is where I can definitely see them confusing masculine with feminine. But now let's go over into the positive negative world of batteries. That makes no fucking sense. Because now when you talk positive and negative, what you're actually doing is looking at the mathematical XYZ axis in length. Literally, it's definition talk when you're measuring a room. It's cubic Euclidean geometry stuff. It makes, yeah, that's math. So they took the math term, they carried it over into the physics world, applied it to batteries. And I'm going, why are you guys doing that? Well, because they didn't study logic. So I would correct their battery language to integration or disintegration. That's it exactly. So when you have a battery, it's flowing in or out, depending upon where that point of attraction is located. The point of attraction is the rod of truth, which is love, which is a pure force. That makes sense. That makes total sense. So every time you're talking about the integration, disintegration, you're talking about love versus fear. Now that's a dichotomy. And this is where people are getting these two things confused, is you have material abstract, which need to be balanced, but love and fear do not need to be balanced. You want 100% pure love. And this is where people really fuck this up, is they think, oh, well, we need fear to, no, you really do not. You want 100% pure love because that's creation. Destruction is the fear, and the concept of you need both. No. Well, no. See, I see it ebbing and flowing through all of time. So the third era, the Dark Ages, that was a really fucking horrible time. And then we're starting to come out of it. And then we didn't. It pulled right back into it because it's a force. So it's literally a tug of war. So you have the tug of war happening with love and fear. That's the dichotomy, the tug of war. But with the material and the abstract, okay, now I understand. So the material and the abstract is the equilibrium. You guys have confused the equilibrium with the karma. That's what's going on. This is making a lot more sense now. So the equilibrium is where the material and the abstract have to be balanced because it's the equilibrium. This is your scales and this is your justice. Now, the karma is the force to make sure that everything remains balanced. So now you've got the karma to make sure the equilibrium stays balanced. But you've got a tug of war with love, creation, and destruction. And love is the only thing that secures the karma to make sure it stays balanced. Fear is the deterioration of the equilibrium. So people have this, literally the equilibrium confused with the dichotomy of good and evil. And they're going, oh, you want to preserve the fear, which in fact is taking apart the equilibrium, which is where Mother Nature has to increase her work effort and now compensate for the insane amount of fear because it's breaking down the equilibrium, which is why she has logic loops to catch this when it happens, because it's a problem. That's when we have the Big Bang and everything goes boom because, well, fear did done fucked up. So ideally, you want love to literally, which is healing, creation, nourishment. So you're either nourishing something, love is the nourishment. And you have to constantly, and then now we're getting into economics with resources, because now you're looking at the nourishment and you're a gardener constantly cultivating and propagating. The fear is the plague that comes in. Now, one would argue, well, don't you want to like rotate your crops? Don't you want to now? And this is where when a plant disintegrates and nourishes the earth, that's great, but that's not what fear is. Fear is not the decrepit rottingness that nourishes the earth. Fear doesn't do that at all. And this is where a lot of people just do not understand what fear is and what love is. So people nourish fear thinking, oh, this is good for the planet. No, you got consumption. That is a poison. That's like saying, unless we have smallpox in the world, we're not going to appreciate health. Logic. That doesn't even make sense. Also, love is pure logic. So pure logic is what sustains the equilibrium and the balance of all. But this is where a lot of people have gotten this all confused, where they're going, oh, the material in the abstract has to be equal. So now we're talking about the equilibrium. The equilibrium is the be all end all of everything. And that is where you have opposites. That is very much where you have opposites. But what you aren't taking into account is the dichotomy. And this is the problem. You have opposites and dichotomy. They're not the same thing. So you have things that are in the world of the opposite. And you've taken things that are dichotomy and categorized them as opposites. And that's where all of this is going to be a problem. That's where everything is falling apart, because the dichotomy is not an opposite. It's not at all being categorized as what it should be. So the logic is incorrect. Because the logic is incorrect, it's now deteriorating and breaking down. This is making so much more sense. Now I'm looking at the relativity to the equilibrium of opposites versus the dichotomy. I'm going to figure this out because I see this magnificent scale this magnificent universal clock. So the universal clock is literally the be all and end all of life, the universe and everything. And it's a giant clock. It's the universal clock. And this thing is so vital that the whole thing self-sustains, that it sits on this gorgeous balancing point called the equilibrium. And it is balanced no matter what under karma. And karma is the force that literally, it is the mathematical equivalency that keeps the whole thing sustained. So Mother Nature's karma bank, the karma, supports the equilibrium. But the dichotomy, there it is what nourishes the karma. Now, if you don't work to nourish the karma is going to come for you. And that's exactly what it does, because it's going to take it out of your ass. That's what it does. So your dichotomy has got to work to nourish the karma, to nourish the equilibrium, to keep it sustained, and free will. You can do it, but there's going to be consequences. So Mother Nature uses physics to correct your ass. So either way, she's getting her karma nourished. How is your choice? So how do you want, there you go, how do you want to nourish Mother Nature's equilibrium? Oh, because she's doing it. So how do you want to nourish the equilibrium? Now you've got two choices. You can do it ethically or you can do it unethically. If you do it ethically, you're going to be rewarded. And if you do it unethically, you're going to be punished. So unethics punishes with consumption. So fear is the punishment of unethics. There you go. Because you violated the physics. That is what fear is. So fear is the consumption or the punishment of unethics because you broke the physics. Well, you fucked with the physics. You didn't respect the physics. So rule number one is respect the physics. Now, if you do it ethically, you're respecting the physics, so you're going to be rewarded. So you're not going to have consumption. You're going to have love instead. So if you have love, great. You're being rewarded for nourishing it ethically. But if you have fear, well, you're violating the physics, so you're being punished, and she's taking it out of you anyway. So fear is the taking it out of you. That's the pain. That's what all cognitive dissonance is. It's Mother Nature taking physics out of your ass by force because you chose to do it unethically. And then that feeds the karma. So she's getting her karma nourished one way or the other. The dichotomy of good and evil is your choice. It's the how are you going to nourish that karma, because the karma is not in question. Now, that being said, the karma is now sustaining the equilibrium. The universal clock is all sustained and life goes on and everything's going to be fine. The question is, are you? There you go, which is what we're down to now with the ethics, which is the 4 cardinal values, which gives you love. See, we're back to love again. But if you're not nourishing the 12 ethics, then you're not adding and contributing to love. So instead you're contributing to fear. And now she's going to give you pain because she's got to draw that karma out of your ass. Hence the pain. There you go. There you go. So that is the dichotomy of good and evil and balancing the universal clock in 20 minutes or less. Thank you so much, and may the kindest of words always find you.